Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tiff Talks Tech. Today, I am excited because I am joined by Lucas Blancas, who's the CTO and co-founder at Lineups. And today, we're going to be talking about the new playbook for multifamily content marketing. But before we really dive in, Lucas, could you just share a little bit about you, how you got to where you are, and what Lineups does?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you again for allowing me to be on the podcast. I
Yeah.
appreciate you letting me get a chance to talk. So my background is as a software engineer, and my co-founder Philip, he has a background in multifamily, and we got luckily matched together from friends who introduced us, and we're both very innovative thinkers. We've already always trying to find ways that we can implement technology to help with the multifamily operations and marketing teams. And I think we kind of stumbled on things in some ways. We initially found one of our clients who had a lot of media just buried in SharePoint, and they couldn't find anything, or it would take them a really long time to find things. And this is before AI was a big topic.
Yeah.
And so we built a classification system for them so that they can search and find all of their media.
Hmm.
And then COVID hit. Everybody's trying to figure out how to change the online experience, and personalization kind of came to mind for many different websites that we were helping with. And through our kind of research and development, we ended up actually kind of landing in this special zone. I think that is really where we're really good at now is an on-brand creation system. So every
Hmm.
community can create content that is specific for their brand and follows their guidelines, follows their voice, and it really helps property management teams create content at scale for their
Yeah,
portfolio.
I think that's one of the hardest parts about working on the operator side is having to come up with different content for all the different properties that you might manage. I know when I worked on the operator side, I oversaw over 65 communities. And so having to come up with something unique for each one can be difficult. And that's something we hear all the time, that creating the content isn't necessarily the hard part, but kind of figuring out what to post about is really difficult. Why do you think so many teams struggle with this?
Yeah, I'm very excited about this whole concept. I feel like properties have like a gold mine that they're working with ideas. Their community has all these different scenes around the property that can be just a backdrop for some fun content. They have tons of amenities. You go to their websites and you can see like a ton of content ideas. So I definitely think there's ideas are there. Um, I think where teams struggle now, and I hear this often, especially recently, is that it's not necessarily a priority sometimes
Mm,
because they're like, I have enough traffic. So, like, maybe I don't need to be doing marketing right now because I'm too busy. And then later on, the season dies down. It's like, oh, well, now I need to put more time into marketing, but the engine's cold, right? You haven't had anything in the content engine going. So,
and I think there's always 2 audiences to that as well, like the new prospects that you're trying to drive to your
mhm.
community, and then there's the residents who have been there and you wanna keep engaging with them with the content that you put out there. Where do you think marketers spend too much of their time when it comes to that content planning and creation?
Yeah, I definitely feel like they're spending, or at least they're trying to spend too much time on the actual creation process.
Yeah.
We hear that they're in Canva and it's taking like an hour to create this flyer, and we all are just kind of like, oh my god, like you don't have an hour to spend doing that. Like you have to plan the event too. Like on top of you're probably seeing prospects come in the door and give tours, or you have residents come in the door and you're trying to like get them moved in. There's not enough time for them to spend an hour doing some graphic design or some video creation. So I think that's definitely where they're spending too much time, and maybe these tools like that they're using are giving them too much control. Honestly, because
Mm.
once you have so many things to use, you're like, oh, let me try this, and before you know it, you're trying to perfect it, and it was probably good enough like 30 minutes ago at least, or an hour ago.
Yeah, I get caught in that all the time, and as much as I love Canva and I live in Canva every day, I will sit there and try to make it perfect before moving on to the next thing, so I am a victim of that for sure. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about AI within that strategy. What is one of the biggest misconceptions that marketers might have when they think about using AI for their content?
I think that it's kind of common to think that AI is just going to remember everything. Uh, we go through this conversation with whatever chat you're using, and we come back and we just start over, and we were like, well, like, I lost everything that I might have been working on before. So I think you got to remember, like, when you are working with AI, you either got to save your work, or you need to, like, give it the whole background all over again, because you had this whole conversation where you learned all these things. You got to this really good point where you're like, okay, yeah, I like what I created, and you don't.
Yeah, definitely. How do you keep it from, like, when you're working with the AI to create that content, how do you keep it from sounding robotic or, there's like the M dash that people always look out for. How do
Yeah,
you
for
prevent
sure.
that?
This is an area we actually spent a lot of time on recently. I've been trying to figure out what to call it. Play with things like brand DNA or brand identity, but you really got to get down on paper or digitally, with your chat, is like, what is this brand representing? Like, what is their voice? What is their tone? What phrases I'd use and don't use? I think you also need to consider, like, what are the main features of this property that really make it unique, that should be incorporated as like a running theme. Or it could be like you have a great mountain view, it could be that you're right by the lake, you have a lot of outdoor parks. But whatever it is, those elements need to be kind of like a focal point
Yeah.
whenever AI is trying to create copy for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we talk a lot about, definitely on this podcast, we talk a lot about integrating the human experience with the AI experience, making sure you have pieces of both. Where do you think humans should still be making the decisions and inserting themselves into the process when it comes to that content?
Yeah, for sure. We primarily use AI as, like, get us started.
Yeah.
Um, and, like, a lot of times people are just kinda stuck. Like, it's right, like that whole writer's block concept. And once you get started, you start to get your bearings on, like, okay, like, I know where this is headed, and I know how to apply all the training and teachings that I've been given, because you've been taught how to, talk about your community and how to sell your community to prospects. So now it's just a matter of, like, blending in your expertise, so work with it, iterate with it, and it's totally fine. But you'll be the person that makes the decision that says, yes, like, this is good to go. Like, sounds like it matches our brand.
Yeah, and I feel like it's always that way when you're using any kind of AI. You never want to just only copy and paste and not make any edits. You always want to read through it, make sure that it still sounds like, what you want it to sound like and look through it. What does it look like? So say I had, a class A or B property and they're trying to come up with their content workflow. What does that look like? What is it ideally that they are going to be executing?
Yeah. So I think it starts with documenting the brand identity. So that's step one. And like I mentioned earlier, it's the voice, topics and themes you want to follow is really key. Um, what we do then is we feed this into a brainstorming session with AI, because it's gonna, like, kind of make this big mix of all kinds of ideas you can run with. And there's gonna be a ton. We've seen definitely enough content to fill up a year's worth of ideas. Um, and what we like to do is, during that brainstorming session, w because our system, has a media catalog, we put that into the brainstorming session as well, so that we can do a kinda like an audit, and it says, "Okay, like, this idea that you have all the media you need to go," like, it's ready to publish, basically, right? You have the photos, you have the videos, it's ready to go, you can schedule it for tomorrow, you piece it together. Um and then after that, you have, like, too many ideas probably. It's a matter of now planning and strategizing, like, okay, like, what do I want to do this month? And you're gonna know, like, there's some must-haves that you have to post. You gotta post the special, you gotta post
Yeah.
the floor plan that's been vacant for too long. And then like there's holidays. So before you know it, you have like at least 4 or 5 posts that are just kind of, you know, in the queue already. And then you start going through the idea bank. And we like to make sure it doesn't sound too repetitive month to month. So we generally try to, review past, 2 months to keep things fresh.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that brings up the point, like, how do you balance that content that is evergreen and, you could create it a month or 2 in advance versus content that's more relevant and kind of changing in the moment with what's going
Yep.
on?
Yeah. Yeah. I recently actually did some analysis on this because I thought um, I needed to be able to give people a good playbook on how to decide how much of this content versus that content needed to be published.
Yeah.
And one thing that I found very interesting is there's not enough people posting about the resident events or
Mm,
pet of the month or some kind of contest and giveaway. Um, those are like fun things that really get people engaged. And that needs to be its own category, I think. Um, and then there's the evergreen content like that. I think becomes your backbone of like just consistently posting. So I'd probably put the evergreen content somewhere around like the 50% of your content, maybe 55, 60%, depending on how much your team has bandwidth. And then you fill the rest up with resident lifestyle contests. And then, of course, you're going to have like holidays and specials and things like that as well to throw in the mix.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense for sure. Thinking about scaling, because so many companies, they might have a ton of properties that they're marketing for all at the same time. Um, how would you recommend one marketing team support that many communities with their content?
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely a very unique industry that we work with, right? You have a marketing team, in, the property management corporate office, and then you have the on-site teams and they're blending together their work to be like a holistic marketing team. Um, I think for us, what we found is that creating this system where every brand has its own isolated sandbox in a way of this is going to be content I'm going to create this month for, 1200 Main Street. And this one's going to be for the Linden. This one's going to be for the Bloom. But if you don't create these isolated environments, then it's going to be very hard to manage all of them. Um, and then if you're, doing very advanced AI prompting, then it's a matter of like, okay, I'm going to prompt to create content, but I'm always in this specific brand, maybe directory, we call it,
Yeah.
which is, housing everything that makes everything that produced out of that specific to them. Um, so
Yeah.
that's what I recommend.
Do you think it's okay to have an amount that is somewhat standardized that you could use across the portfolio and maybe change a thing or two, and some of a mix of content that is a lot more customized and specific to the property?
No, I think that's probably okay to do. I would say though that like that was probably a solution people made because earlier on technology just didn't have a solution for you to create like customized content for every property.
Yeah.
And it's changing a lot, as you know. So we already know that it's possible to create customized content for each property. It's part of our platform, but now it's a matter of like making sure that it's integrated into your process, into your system, because you don't have to create it as the portfolio's standardized content. But I would recommend that people try to make it customized per property, because if not, then when somebody goes and sees the content on your social media account, they're going to get confused. They're going to be like, "Whoa, did somebody mess up? Like, why do I see this
Yeah.
other brand?" And they don't know what property management companies are generally. They just know that that's the department that I'm looking at. So
Yeah, that's very true. I know, and I think about my time on the operator side, like managing that many communities, it was before AI was really big and booming. So it was really difficult to come up with those ideas for that many communities. Now that we have AI in the picture, it becomes so much easier to customize and create those individual voices for each community. Let's talk a little bit about creating better content. What types of posts consistently perform really well for apartment communities?
Yeah. So I think everybody's heard this probably a ton of times. Like reels are the hot topic now. Like
Mhm.
everybody should be posting as many reels as they can. Um, it's definitely 3 times better reach than any other format for sure. Uh, if you're trying to target engagement, then carousels are the way to go. And that's just looking at format. Those are 2 kind of like levers you can play with. You want to reach more reels if you want more engagement carousels. And then from the content mix side, I think I maybe alluded to this already, was that if you want more engagement, then you need to choose, things that the residents are probably going to be more likely to engage with. So contests and resident events, and then your evergreen content will be a little less than that. But the poor performer in that category is going to be all the promotional stuff, the
Mm.
seasonal and the holidays. Like you use it to fill up your calendar, but don't really expect to get a lot of reach or engagement out of those posts.
Yeah, that's a good point. I always feel like even myself creating content for our social media platforms on the vendor side, I'll feel a little bit silly creating a reel or a TikTok and trying to get everyone involved, but at the same time, those are the ones that perform really well for us, is getting whoever you can involved, and I just save sounds as I go as I'm scrolling for fun in my free time. I'm saving a sound that I think might work for later that I could take back my professional life and maybe do something with it.
That's smart. I like that idea.
Yeah. So let's talk about the playbook for multifamily content marketing. For years, we've been pretty reactive, and we talk about that a lot, reactive marketing versus proactive. Um, what do you think that the new playbook looks like when we are trying to be more proactive and start planning more in advance?
Yeah. I would try to target like the traditional 80-20 rule. Let's keep the 20% reactive stuff,
Mhm.
they're going to come up, right? We can't necessarily say they're not going to happen and we don't want to do them. Even if you were to plan it out ahead of time, right? You're going to get to the month and maybe something changed. So now you got to rework it.
Yeah,
So we just got to expect some of those things to happen. Um, but now with, AI being this brainstorming tool that you can go and build an idea bank, I think it's very easy for you to build a big queue of ideas that you want to create, um, plan them out, and look for those pieces of content where you're like, okay, I do want to post. It's a really good idea, right? It's like maybe it's like a morning ritual at the property, and you're like, oh, it sounds great. It's like so easy for me to show somebody what it's like to live at this community, but I don't have the content. And so now it's a matter of just you're created a list of shots or videos that you need to go take. And it really won't take that long once you kind of have a little bit of a content direction. And that's where I think AI is going to help out a lot, you know, giving you the things to do to make sure you can capture and post content later.
totally. I even think about, like, we've had a few sales meetings where I'll prep in advance, even just like a note of these are the sounds or the TikToks reels that I want to create. This is how many people I need for each one. Like, did we check it off? Yes or no? Like, having that plan in advance, I think, is so helpful because I'm not sitting there going, "Oh my gosh, what sound should we use? What trend are we going to do today?" So, we're thinking about that in advance, and I think it's important. If you were building a content strategy for from scratch for an operator today, what would be the first 3 things that you would have them look at?
Yeah. So we had to do this a couple times, this at least, month or so. There was one property we had out in Dallas, and they had this really fun backdrop of the lake, and it became the central theme of everything because it's like living outdoors and it like kind of settling down, and the pace of life is different, and there's wildlife involved. So I think that like getting it documented, like what makes your property unique, because that's going to become kind of really easy content to play with, um, when you're trying to figure out how to copyright and when you're trying to figure out like where to go take photos or videos. So getting that documented, I would start first because a lot of people may not even have that to begin with. Um, and then I'd start with a 3 month plan. I think it's very easy nowadays to do a 3 month plan. I put together 10 posts a month. and just do like a 622 format, 6 reels, 2 carousels, and 2 photos, just to keep it simple, right? It's easy to remember, I think. Um, and then I would definitely try to find a champion on site, because most often we find that there's professional photography that they've taken, and you're gonna run through that pretty quickly if you try to post it and you don't want to be repetitive. Um, so and we need the authentic photos and videos that come from somebody who lives, at the property or is there all the time. And so I'd get a champion who can go and take some photos. We send them a shot list and say, hey, this is what we need you to capture, and this is why. Like this is what your strategy, your posting content calendar is going to look like if you can give us this content. And I think that'll be a big win for somebody who's starting from scratch.
Yeah, and I think it gives them a sense of ownership in a way of like, "Oh, I get to participate in this fun thing," and helping the team make content, and so I do think it's beneficial for them too to be able to have that.
Yeah, one of the persons I'm working with, she was like, "I feel like a content creator." And so it's
Yeah.
like a motivational thing too,
Yeah.
like you said, and that's very important for them to feel like they're adding value in the content plan.
Exactly, I know. I even have friends, like, in customer support that I'll lean on and be like, "Hey, I have this idea. Do you think you would create it for me?" Because it's all my face on the feed right now, and they're like, "Yes, I would love to." So, just being able to find those people, on the teams that are excited about it can be a really big game changer too. When we're looking at content and data, what role does it play in deciding what content gets created?
Yeah. I mean, it's gonna be challenging to do as a on-site team. I think that probably the management companies help out here, because they're gonna be able to look at across the board, not just their community, but other communities as well, to make it like relevant or normalize the data in a way, because you can see trends that way. And that's how some of the analysis that I've done works. And so, you know, like I said before, the reason we were able to know that Reels was so good was because I looked across, 40,000 posts in the past, year and a half to 2 years from 200 communities. um, I mean, that's just the format side of things, but the actual content type is, another story as well. So I say yes. I would recommend people to track things like reach, because I think that a big value add for your social media is who's seeing your content, the new people, the new prospects. There's still this aspect of like maybe you're communicating to your residents and you're like, sharing and socializing with them, and they can engage with it as well. But I think most people, when they're thinking about marketing, they're going to think like, am I getting new people in the doors? So,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. If you were auditing the average multifamily company's constant content strategy tomorrow, what's one thing that you would tell them to stop and one thing you would tell them to start doing?
I hope I don't step on anybody's toes here, but I'd be like, please don't use Canva anymore. Um, Not that it's Canva's fault. Like
Yeah.
there's definitely good aspects of using Canva, but you can definitely quickly see when you go into somebody's feed and you're like, wow, like that looks like they pulled up Microsoft PowerPoint and just used all the clip art that was available.
Yeah.
Um, and they posted it. And so it doesn't look so great. And it lowers the professionalism, I think, a little bit of the content that's posted. And it's just like they did it. They didn't think through like, oh, like what is this going to look like on the account once I post it. They just went with it. Um, and so I think having a little bit more understanding or oversight about like your brand identity, what you're trying to represent, because you're representing a business, right? And it is a community. It is a community where you work, but we do want to make sure there's a certain level of like consistency.
Yeah.
Um, and then one thing I would start doing is I think that people probably they're not posting consistently. I often see properties just I posted like 3 months ago,
Yeah.
and it's like, or even longer than that. Um, I would just try to set like a simple goal, just post at least once a week.
Yeah.
It can be something very simple. You working at your desk, or taking a little shot of one of the amenities like the package lockers. I don't know. Keep it simple. But once a week, I think, is very doable, because when you do want to beef up your your social media reach, you don't want your profile or your feed to look empty.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk a little bit about what the future of content could look like. How do you think content planning is going to change over the next 2 or 3 years when it comes to multifamily?
Yeah, I've been hearing two different things, and I think they're really kind of fun and exciting, maybe. And the first one is having content be a series or
Mm, yeah,
episodes. And now, granted, I'm not sure how well that's going to play out in terms of who's going to execute, who's going to plan out the series, but it feels like there's this fun way where your social account is kind of like a little bit of an entertainment feed, right? You might have a storyline that spans across multiple posts, and that multiple posts goes across multiple months, and now you have this little short series of content. Um, but I think that that gives us a sense of people wanting to plan longer form or longer, periods of time. So I think that you're going to also see people plan out a year in advance, at least for the evergreen content and holidays and things like that. And hopefully that means then that it frees up time for teams on site to not be like trying to rush through and make content last minute
yeah.
or to feel like they are just really behind. Because that should mean that they should just have a little bit of content to create each month versus a lot.
Yeah, totally. No, I love that idea. And I'm thinking even back to something that I did with our team. We had one of our customer success people, she looked at all the questions that they were consistently getting and she had put them on the board for the sales team, like, hey, just be aware of these. This is how we'll answer it and all of that. And I decided, hey, I think that would be actually a great series. So her and I worked together to come up with, hey, these are common questions or things you may not have known about such and such, which I think would be a great idea on the site level of like, hey, here's one thing you didn't know. We have a partnership with so and so, and you get a discount here, or, anything like that that they
Yeah.
might be frequently asking. I think that's a really fun, easy series you could implement.
That's funny that you say that because I'm actually trying that out with one of my communities. I told her, I was like, hey, how do you feel about being on camera?
Yeah.
Because if you could just do like a frequently asked questions and that would become our series of posts,
Yeah.
it seems really easy to do. Like, all right, read a question, read an
Yeah.
answer, and you know how to answer it. So it will be easy.
Exactly. I'm like, you're answering this all day. So, like, it should be pretty easy. Just answer it how you would normally answer it. And she blew it out of the park. She did amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
What are some skills that marketers should start looking at developing now if they want to stay ahead of the game?
Yeah. So I'm assuming we're talking still about AI because, this is how
Yeah.
we're going to try to make marketing more efficient. But the harder part I think about trying to, you know, get AI to work for you is going to be about kind of distilling out the expertise that you have and getting it documented. Um, and I wouldn't be too fixated on being like, oh, I got to get it perfect the first time. Right? You got to start trying to figure out how to document like what it is that makes your process or makes your workflow work effectively for you or for your community. Um, and that is a little bit of a science and an art there. I come back from a software engineering background, so we're doing specifications and testing plans, and so I feel like it's more natural coming from my background and my expertise. But I think if marketers can figure out how to do this well, they're going to set themselves ahead because they're going to have like their assistant that knows how to do it just the way that they want them to do it. Um,
Yeah.
so that's what I
Yeah, I
recommend.
feel like we're hearing a lot more about AI assistants and how they can jump in and kind of help you alongside. So I think that's an exciting idea that's coming soon, and we'll see more. I do have a bonus question before we kind of close out. This is something I ask every single one of my guests. It does not have to be related to this topic at all, but is there a tech tool that you are loving in your life right now that you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing like everybody likes this. Maybe I don't know, can't say, but Cowork, the desktop version of Claude. Okay, um, I don't use the website version. I always use the desktop version.
Okay.
What really is sucks for me though is like if I'm switching between computers, then it doesn't really transfer
Yeah.
properly. But it's game changing because I can give it access to all the documents I have on my computer. I have access to data that I can export out and then just dump it into my computer and then have it work with me to do analysis. And then like I said earlier, it's like I save projects for different things so that I'm like, okay, this is my data analysis on social media project, and this is my social content planning project. And now I really have like an organized system on how I'm producing things for
Yeah.
consistently. Yeah.
No, I love it. The last few guests that I've had have also said Claude, and I'm like, I used to be strictly ChatGPT, and lately I have just been living in Claude.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. Maybe I think they've done a few enhancements, but yeah, everyone's loving Claude right now.
Yeah.
It's great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining. I feel like this has been a great conversation. I'm excited for people to implement some of these strategies. Can you
For sure.
share where people can find you and connect with you and learn more about what you do?
Yeah. So first, go check out our website, lineups.io. We are just rolling out a new website like 2 days ago. So I think people will have fun going to it and checking it out. It's a little bit of an interactive experience. And then you can find me on LinkedIn, or you can email me, lucas at lineups.io. So looking forward to chatting with whoever wants to hear how we help other communities content plan and create content.
I love it. Thank you so much for joining. Tune in next week.
Yeah.
Talks Tech for more info.
Thank you, Tiffany.